Hello and welcome to Facebook Live with the Kansas City Star Editorial Board. I am Derek Donovan. I'm here with my colleague Melinda Henneberger, and we're very happy to be able to welcome Stuart Carden with us today. He is the new artistic director at the Kansas City Repertory Theatre. You've been here since about September, is that right, Stuart?
September 1st, my birthday.
All right.
Is when it all kicked off.
Great new startings. So, we'd like to welcome you to talk about various things related to the theater, but first of all, just explain to our viewers, what does an artistic director do?
Sure, so an artistic director, their main focus is on all the stories and artists that you see on stage. So an artistic director both identifies the curiosity and the fears, the questions, the passion of its audience, and then programs to that taste, and programs to what stories will be most resonant for your audience. And then from there, after programming those stories, the work of bringing together the creative teams and bringing together the artists and everything that ends up on stage is really the purview of the artistic director. There's a lot of other things the artistic director does, everything from taking a lead in the partnership on fundraising, taking a lead in the organizational culture, and also, particularly in this moment, in the evolution of artistic directors across the country, there's also a high degree of civic engagement as well. There's been a movement of late, and I'm definitely a part of this generational shift of an artistic director that is very committed to centering their regional theater very fully in the cities in which they live and serving those communities. So there's a high degree of my work that's focused on listening and having conversations in the community about how we as a not-for-profit theater can best serve as an arts organization and a performing arts organization in our community, because we know theater matters and we know theater and live performance can impact people's lives. So it's about identifying what stories need to be told here in Kansas City and then working to connect live performance and make it as accessible as we can to as many as we can.
You said one of the things that you want to speak to is the fears of your audience. I never really thought about that as being part of the job. Say a little more about that. Like, what are the fears of this audience?
Sure. I mean, they are the existential fears that we are all dealing with. Sometimes they manifest themselves in very specific ways, such as...
Should we go to the theater?
Should we go to the theater because of coronavirus? Yes, there's those types of fears. But also, you know, the fears that we have just in that intersect with the human condition, right? And we're working on right now Noises Off. We have 3 productions in process right now. Our Origin KC new play festival with 2 premieres, and then we're in rehearsals for one of the classic comedies written in the last 50, now 60 years, with Noises Off. And what's really interesting about that piece is it's a farce and it's really quite funny, but as Kierkegaard says, comedy comes from a place of suffering. And the interesting thing as we've been working on Noises Off to speak to fear is that one of the things that I think is very, very funny and cathartic about the experience of Noises Off is that it's addressing the fear that we all have of, am I going to be able to handle what comes at me? If I make one mistake, will it tumble into the next? And the accumulation of that anxiety, am I going to be able to make it through this thing, is very much the comic existential fear that's being explored in Noises Off in a very, very funny way, but it's born of that exploration of fear. And so conversations, I feel so fortunate to be here and to be the new artistic director. I've been wanting to help lead an organization of this size and this size of city where you can actually know your audience and be in dialogue with them in honest ways. And I have been at every performance of every show we've had so far this year, and I've committed to do that for the entire year. And we do 8 shows a week and 10 for a Christmas Carol. And one of the things that I've been asking audiences when I've introduced myself is to say, why do you come? and what stories are important to you, and what do you need from a performing arts organization. And those responses, some of them speak to fears, some of them speak to curiosity, some of them speak to people's passions, some of them speak to style, but those conversations have been deeply informative as I've thought about who we're currently serving as an arts organization, and the KC Rep faithful, who I call them that. How do we deepen that engagement and honor that 55-year contract we've had with those audiences? And then also, how do we be additive? And then how do we be in conversation with communities that right now we're not in dialogue with, that may have barriers of access around geography or perception or economic barriers, cultural barriers. So we're working at KC Rep, and I'm really passionate about bringing about this. We're working to blow the doors off the theater, open them wider by programming works that that will bring in new audiences that may not have felt comfortable stepping across the threshold of our theater before, but those stories reflecting their community or stories that are important to them. And we're also really working towards taking work out in the community in significant ways. And in a minute, I would love to share a little bit about that, which is we're centering a program that is going to take the best of our artistry on our stages and then take that work out onto a community tour in communities that right now we're not in dialogue with. And we're going to start to build the bridge there back to our theater rather than solely asking people to come to us.
So geographically, what communities are you looking at there?
So this will be a very geographically disparate approach, mainly in the KC metro area, but the approach with this is going to be really about the different, each one of our stops on the tour is going to be engaging a community that has a different form of barrier to engaging with us. So that might be a community that has perhaps an economic barrier, or this might be a geographic, just the distance, and we'll take work outside. All of those partnerships we're in the process of building right now, but the entire staff and board has centered on this community tour idea and really jumped in a way that made me feel like I made the right choice in coming here, because that's the type of work both in our theaters and out in our community that I'm really passionate about.
Time frame wise, when would this be
So
happening?
this will be the Royale, which is one of the plays that we're producing next year. And we're modeling off this program off of a couple programs around the country. So the Public Theater in New York has the mobile unit, which is their touring unit. And the Old Globe in California and San Diego has their Globe for All. And I just did I experienced it firsthand when I was directing at the Old Globe, but then also went out on a site visit this past fall to really soak in their best practices in their approach to this. So we're going to do the Royale, which is a piece by Marco Ramirez about the first black heavyweight champion of the world. You know who that was? Jack Johnson, who had a major bout here in Kansas City. So this piece tells the story of Jack Johnson fighting to get the title fight from the white heavyweight champion of the world, and then the seismic impact of that match. And thematically, the piece is really centered on the question of what are you willing to risk for change in a really powerful, compelling way. And so we will be performing the Royale with some extraordinary artists in our Spencer Theater at KC Rep, for our KC Rep faithful, for our subscribers. And then that production will then extend beyond the run in our theater and then go out onto the community tour. And this will be more than just performance. This will be taking this work into a community as a way to begin a dialogue and engage with that community. And this will be in spaces where those communities already gather. So this is going to be in libraries, in recreation centers. This is going to be in community centers. And we'll have a community meal as a part of this. All of this will be a free engagement, a community meal as a part of this with the artist and with the community members. There will then be opportunities for local community arts partners. So if they have a dance troupe or a hip hop troupe or a spoken word troupe or a fill in the blank, what their community center does really well, they will have a performance. And then we will share this really powerful theatrical professional experience of the Royale in a 15 by 15 square on the floor. Intimacy focused, language focused, physicality focused, meaning no lights and sets. This is about language and physicality and the power of those actors in close proximity. And because there's so many people that don't have access right now to live professional theater in this community. And so we want to, as one of the largest theaters in this community, as a not-for-profit theater in this community, this is one of the ways that we want to be in service and can bring a live professional theater experience to audiences that right now we're not in dialogue with. I'm so excited about this program.
We can tell.
And I'm particularly excited because I've been here 6 months. And the reception to this idea amongst the staff and this is a significant program. The reception of the staff, the board, and also the community that I've spoken to about this program, people have said yes and yes and yes.
I'm sure.
If they're hungry for it, and that feels great. And honestly, makes me feel like I made the right choice in coming here because this is what I'm going to lead with. This is the type of programming that is very central to my desire for, and this is a movement that's happening across the country, but a desire to really recenter the regional theater movement in the regions in which they live and serve and be in dialogue in meaningful ways.
What have you learned about the audience here so far? And there are a lot of different audiences, but what has surprised you?
I mean, the biggest thing that has surprised me is just there is such a history of cultural and performing arts patronage here. On the macro level, the first time I stepped into Kansas City was my first interview. I had never been here. The second time was for my second interview. The third time, I was here on the job. So there's been a lot of uploading of what this community is all about. And one of the things that has really positively surprised me and blown me away is the history of cultural and arts and performance patronage. How many people go and engage with performing arts here? And then also the history of the patronage in terms of support. Attendance and the history of philanthropy and support of performing arts in this city. I've directed all over this country. I've helped lead organizations in 2 other cities. I have not been in a city of this size that has this type of relationship with its culture and art. It's really surprising. It was surprising in wonderful ways to me. And so that's one of the things that I've learned is just the degree to which performing arts and art in general, visual arts as well, and dance is really prized and important to this community. So that's been a surprise. I've also, at KC Rep, we have something called our Monday Night Playwright Series readings. And these are new plays in development and in process that we invest in opportunities for playwrights to continue developing their work. We tailor the rehearsal process to the needs of the playwright. Sometimes it's a 2-day rehearsal period. Sometimes it's a week-long engagement, if with designers or musicians, whatever the playwright needs to explore. And then we do these readings on Monday night. Between 6 and 10 of them a year. The turnout for these Monday Night Playwright Series readings has been so robust, and also the same people are coming back to each one of these Monday Night Playwright Series readings. And that tells me a lot. It tells me that there's already a conversation that's happening between our organization, between KC Rep, and new play audiences. And it tells me that there's already a following and a base for me to help come in and amplify what is, I think, really crucial for the future of American theater, which is our current investment in new plays. And so I've been really surprised by the degree to which audiences have been very, very hungry and passionate and committed to the new works that we're developing here. When I did our season announcement, one of the plays that we did a big season announcement, we threw a party. I was standing on the bar in the lobby of the theater. We had live music playing, and we had pop-up performances from shows from next year. It was something new that we had never done before, and it was really, really fun and exciting. And during that, we announced one of the Monday Night Playwright Series readings, Flood, by Mashuk Mushtaq Dean. We announced that it would be in next season. And there was a big cheer that went up from people that had been to that Monday night reading that were already connected to both the story that was being told and the artist, the playwright, because they had engaged with Dean in a really meaningful way when he was here. So that has been really amazing. I'll tell you two quick, like somewhat amusing things. The things that I didn't expect on the, I won't even say on the negative side, but I was really surprised how intense people were when we started to discuss where I should send my kids to school. Oh, yeah. and in an amazing combination of tribalism and boosterism, there was this onslaught of you're going to send them there, you're going to send them there, you're not going to send them there, you're going to send them over there.
And they're how old?
And they're 8. I have twins that are 8, and that I did not expect. I was really overwhelmed by how intense those conversations were. And then the other thing and I will have a bit of fun with this audience because I really loved getting to know them. And they're a slightly different audience, which at KC Rep, which is the audience that comes to A Christmas Carol. And I'll have a little fun with them, which is I had no idea what I was getting into in regards to A Christmas Carol and how opinionated people are about A Christmas Carol. I mean, it is a tradition and people are opinionated about traditions, but I really had no sense of how much this meant to that audience.
More so here?
More. I'm sure it is true to a degree, but I can't tell you how many times I heard about at KC Rep the glitter row at KC Rep, which I had never experienced what this was. Do you know what this is? So there's a moment where Ghost of Christmas Present comes out through the audience and through the horn of plenty is throwing glitter over top as blessings on all of the audience. And this has been a tradition for a while at the theater. I had no idea, and people were saying, I can't wait for the glitter row, and you're not going to take away the glitter row, are you? And I was like, no, I won't. I don't know what this is, but I won't take it away. But that was really, really quite fun and funny, the degree to which they were that passionate about A Christmas Carol. But it became really moving to understand that tradition. Every night, I asked people to raise their hand if they had seen A Christmas Carol at KC Rep before, and 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25, 30,
wow.
35 years. And every night there was at least one person that had been coming for 35 years. And when we got to 20 years, as I was doing that, there would be a spontaneous applause from the audience. And it was a really beautiful moment in what theater really can do for a community. And that community was celebrating the tradition, they were celebrating the story, they were celebrating each other, they were celebrating the agreement that they all made together to come together on this night and go through an experience and story and journey together. It was really a powerful moment. And when my colleagues from around the country sometimes bemoan the A Christmas Carol in their season, I push back and say, this is a powerful, powerful example of how theater, and especially that tradition of community, can really impact and move people. And we need more of that. And I'm not saying do A Christmas Carol throughout the year, but we as an art form in this renaissance of small screens with such great television and small screen writing is happening, we need to really lean into what we do beautifully as an art form, and that is both really putting the people in the room with extraordinary performers telling extraordinary stories, really in the room together, and also give them more opportunities before intermission, afterwards, to engage in conversation, to hear a perspective that they're not going to get in the echo chamber of their online communities or in front of their small screens, but rather to bring people together in engaging and hopefully energizing ways and reflect. I call these campfire moments, and it's one of the things that I want us to do at KC Rep more, is provide opportunities for people to gather pre and post to engage and socialize with one another and to reflect on what they've just experienced, the story that they've just experienced. Back in the day, before I was here, long, long, long ago, I don't know if you all, this is way before your time as well, but I've heard the story about the Quonset huts that KC Rep, Missouri Rep back then used to perform in, these like open air tents during the summer. And they had every night a bonfire outside. And many of the KC Rep faithful have talked to me about, oh, we missed that bonfire opportunity. You experienced, you went on a journey, you were taken to another world or asked to see something from a different perspective. And then the opportunity to then gather with friends and neighbors and reflect on that experience is something that I feel like we as performing arts and particularly theater makers need to get back to in big and small ways. And slowly, the season preview party was an example of that. Slowly, we're evolving this organization to create those opportunities for engagement and to really do what we do beautifully that small screens don't.
So we're just about out of time.
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievably, right? But it is now March 11, Wednesday, and
yes.
You've got a fairly big weekend coming
yes.
up. So tell us about
Oh my goodness, thank you. I just went on I hope it was compelling and interesting, but I just went on a monologue there. But you could tell how passionate I am about
Absolutely.
This opportunity here. And the impact that we can make in this community. So this weekend is our big festival weekend for the Origin KC Festival. We have 2 world premieres in repertory. We have Legacyland by Stacey Rose, which is an incredible piece of writing, a really powerful, meaningful, intense story. It's a story of healing. It's a story that gives voice to survivors. And it's the story of a woman who is working through and overcoming the legacy of trauma that has been passed down to her through her family. It's also very rich and funny. It's just an extraordinary piece of writing. So that's premiering this weekend. And also we're premiering a new adaptation, a storyteller adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I mentioned this earlier, it's so new that it has a new title. It's called Frankenstein, a Ghost Story. And there's a really compelling reason that this storyteller is sharing with us, is retelling the Frankenstein story. And there's a mystery to be unraveled as a part of the why the storyteller is sharing the story. This is written and performed by Kyle Hatley, and it is a bravura performance. He is an extraordinary performer. I'm just coming to know him as a performer. I know that he's quite well known here in Kansas City. He did an Iliad with us that a lot of people really responded to. And so those are premiering. We also have 2 readings that are happening. These are free readings that you can RSVP to on our website. These 2 readings are plays that will premiere in next year's festival. The playwrights are here. It's a chance for the playwrights to hear their plays aloud in front of an audience and continue their work on the plays. One is by Laura Eason called The Vast In-Between. Laura Eason is known quite a bit for her TV writing, including House of Cards and also The Loudest Voice, and also some film work. And then the other one was the one I mentioned earlier, Flood by Mashuk Mushtaq Dean. We'll have a reading. We'll also have panel discussions and conversations by new play experts that are coming in from all over the country to engage in conversations around new play development and the importance of new work to the American theater. So all of that's happening that weekend, this weekend. We continue to play in rep, same space, the theater at midnight every night. One entire set gets moved off, an entire other set comes on, the same space. You won't recognize that space from one night to the next. And so it's a really compelling opportunity to come see 2 world premieres. First time ever an audience is engaging with these works in repertory.
And this is at the Copenhagen stage.
This is at the Copenhagen stage in H&R Block. And then just a couple weeks later, we'll be in performances for one of the funniest plays ever written, Noise Is Off, after that.
Excellent. Well, it was really great to talk to you. It feels like we could continue this for another 2 hours. But Stuart Carden, the new KC Rep Artistic Director, joins us today, and you have been with the editorial board on Facebook Live.